What's going on, you guys? Welcome on back to the channel. Now, the new episode of ReZero is officially here, and with it, it's an interesting one because while the last couple episodes have been very action focused and action oriented, and we've seen even like in last episode, like a lot of body horror and all that, this episode doesn't really have anything like that. If anything, this episode slows itself down a lot. It's kind of more dialogue driven and it's more like character driven. And I, for one, really like that a lot. I think that's a breath of fresh air, especially since the last few episodes have been such high octane of action. So I actually really like this a lot. But without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about this new episode of ReZero Season 4. So, the first thing that I really want to get into with this episode is the dream that Subaru had. Now, this dream to me is so cool because getting to see Regulus and especially Betelgeuse again was so awesome for me because Betelgeuse in particular, we have not seen that guy in years. It has been so long since we've seen Betelgeuse, and especially in the English dub, like his performance is so good, and I miss that performance so much. So getting to see Betelgeuse and Regulus again is so cool to me. I love that so much. It felt like I was watching, especially for Betelgeuse, season one again. So having them back, even though it was for a short period of time, was really a breath of fresh air. But they're not just here for a simple cameo. Like Betelgeuse in particular is so important, but we'll get into that later on as we talk about the episode. Now, the main crux of this episode, though, is the character of Shaula. Because as soon as Subaru and Beatrice walk out of the carriage, Shaula enters the scene. And with that, Shaula essentially kind of dominates the rest of the episode solely because this is Shala's episode, right? This is us learning more about her as a character. And honestly, I like that a lot because Shaula was one of those characters where she could have gone one of two ways. And those two ways being like, I don't like her, and she's kind of just like the villain character, or she gets a lot of development and she becomes kind of like a permanent fixture in the party, which I think is going to happen. So I liked learning more about that. I also liked learning that Subaru, like she's convinced Subaru is her master, right? She's convinced that Subaru is Flugel, and I was confused of that at first. I was like, wait a minute, like why are you so like persistent in the fact that Subaru is your master? But then when she said that it was all determined by smell, it clicked for me. She's able to essentially like detect the essentially witch's scent is essentially what I was able to gather here. So that's really cool to me. But at first I was like, wait a minute, why don't you just immediately piece together that Subaru isn't your master? But then you realize that she's blind. I didn't realize that at first. I don't think they directly confirm that within the episode, but I was able to gather that she's a blind character, and a lot of what she does is driven by her scent of smell. That's why you see like a lot of her interactions with Subaru, she's kind of latched onto him because she can't really see that well. So she's determining where she's going by her scent of smell. And that's interesting to me. But you're probably wondering like if you're I don't know. I was wondering too, like, how is she actually blind? But if you look at her eyes, she has these like red dots in like the top of her eye and the corners of her eye. So what I think those are for is to limit essentially her vision, right? It's essentially to strip away her vision. That's what I think those red dots symbolize for her. So that she can't see. I don't know how true that is. I don't know if that's like right or not, but that's where I think it's going, honestly, with Shala as a character. Those red dots are the things that keep her from being able to see. So she solely has to rely on her scent of smell in order to really like see and see where she's going. That's what I think Shala is like as a character. It's kind of like Tanjiro, but if Tanjiro had no vision, is if that makes any sense. That's what I think Shala is right now. I think that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. And oh, another thing that I liked about Shala, I especially liked when they're climbing the staircase and Mealy grabs at Shaula's ponytail, and she's like, "Don't grab my scorpion tail." That was actually a cool line. I liked that a lot. I don't know if there's going to be anything with that. I think it was mostly just for like the stuff at the end of the episode, but I wonder if Shaula is a character that has kind of like some transformation or something like that, where she could transform into a scorpion creature. That's probably not what it is. It's probably just for the stuff that's at the end of the episode. But honestly, I would like that a lot. I think that would be cool. Now, one scene that I really loved in this episode that I thought was honestly kind of like a standout scene was the stuff with Subaru and Rom when they went to go check on Rem and Patricia. That was such an important scene to me because it effectively like wraps up everything that happened last episode, right? Where everything kind of fell apart. You saw like Subaru yelling and going just ballistic on Rom. You saw him essentially lose his mind last episode. His mental state completely shattered in that episode, and he said a lot of horrible things to Rom, right? He said awful like vitriolic things to her, and Subaru, he's always going to remember that he said those things to Rom, right? Because that's the thing with Return by Death. Nobody else remembers what happened, but Subaru remembers everything. And because he remembers what he says in this episode is so profound and it's so important. When he gets done comforting Patricia after learning about her injuries, you then see Subaru essentially say, Rom, you need to look after Rem for me, right? That's essentially what's happening because Rom didn't want to leave Rem alone. And Subaru was basically saying, you're the only one that can really do this, right? So I like the fact that we kind of get a full circle moment from last episode where Subaru and Rom's relationship was at the worst it's ever been, right? They both said horrible things to each other. Rom can't remember it. Subaru does. And in this moment, you see Subaru put his complete and utter full trust into Rom in this moment, right? He's entrusting Rom with essentially looking after Patricia and looking after Rem. He's essentially putting both of their like lives in her hands because that shows how much he truly trusts her to take care of both of them. Like, even though he said all those horrible things last episode, I think they were mostly affected by what Shaula was doing, like with the miasma and stuff like that. So, but I do think it was also stuff that he buried deep down that was lingering within him. So, seeing him talk like this with like Rom in this moment, telling her that he essentially has full faith in her to take care of Rem is such an important moment for his character. It shows that he took what happened in the last loop very seriously, even though nobody else remembers it. That's something that's always going to stick with him. The fact that he said that to her. So him in this moment telling Rom this stuff, it's so important to me, and I love that scene so much. It's such a good scene. It honestly like makes last episode even better, and just goes to strengthen this episode. So I love that scene. I hope though this doesn't mean that Rom isn't like around a lot for the rest of the season. I hope this doesn't mean that she's kind of like regulated to that like room. I hope we're gonna see her more, and yeah, I love that a lot. Now, moving on to essentially what takes place like for the rest of the episode. One quick scene though that I really liked was when they essentially brought up the Estrella name to Julius. I like that a lot. Like when they were talking about like I think his name was Reed. I believe his name was Reed. I like when they brought him up because Julius again is someone who's very confident in like the Estrella name and all that. Julius doesn't really have a lot left at this point in the story. He only really like has what he believes like his full convictions and things. So when Shaula says that Reed or like Reed Estrella was essentially human scum, he is essentially shaken by that notion. When she's saying all these horrible things about him, you see Julius start to like shake a little bit because it's a small moment, but Julius is a character that has essentially been stripped of everything, right? Nobody remembers him. Nobody has their memories of him. All he has is the things that he truly remembers and the things that he's convicted about. And the fact that like he hears all these things, it's another thing that's being taken away from him. Something that he thought he knew so strongly is essentially being flipped on its head. And you see him start to question himself in that moment, like when his eyes start getting like watery and all that, and he starts shaking a little bit. That's him essentially having to process the fact that that's another thing that's being taken away from him, his convictions of the Estrella name. And that's honestly really, really awesome. I love that scene a lot. It's a scene that I don't think will get talked about a lot, but it's a very important one. Now, what I also love too about this whole scene is how essentially it's kind of confirming to me, at any rate, that the person that was in charge of Pleiades Watchtower before, I think they might have been somebody that was from Earth. Now, follow me a little bit because it's probably going to be, this is kind of like a theory. I don't know if it's right or not, but we do know that there are two confirmed people in ReZero that have been reincarnated or have come from Earth, right? Subaru is one, and then this is only really if you like know stuff about the light novel and the manga. I didn't even know about this until like when I read the manga because the anime does not talk about this, but Al is also from Earth, right? Subaru and Al are both characters that are from Earth, and you see stuff like especially in season 3, like the hotel that they stay at is something that's also kind of you can tell is influenced by Japan, right? And Subaru recognizes it, and it's kind of like modeled after something from Japan, right? So what I think is happening here in the Watchtower is when Subaru figures out everything that's going on, right? When he goes up with Biko and they essentially are able to figure out the puzzle because it's essentially constellations. What I think this is I think the person that's in charge of Pleiades Watchtower is somebody who also came from Earth, right? We know that there's at least another person that is here from Earth. I think it's the same person, right? I think the person that like did the stuff for the hotel is also did stuff here at the Watchtower, and the only person that could really ever fully figure this stuff out is somebody who came from Earth, right? Who are able to figure out constellations and all that. That's why Betelgeuse and Regulus, their cameo was so important because it allowed for Subaru to think about the constellations, right? He was able to track the constellations, found the Betelgeuse one, and it essentially led him to the answer, right? It led him to the answer of like he didn't want to pick that one, so he went with Rigel, and that essentially allowed for them to get into the library, right? So I do think that there has to be something going on a deeper level with like characters coming from Earth, right? I don't think Subaru and Al are the only ones. I think there's another one, like at least I don't think he's walking amongst them anymore, but because I think he's like dead at this point, but I do think there was a third person that came from Earth. That is the reason why there's that stuff with the hotel and there's stuff going on with the Pleiades Watchtower. That's what I think's going on. And honestly, dude, that would be so cool if that's what it is, where like more stuff from Earth continues to reflect like within the episodes. I would love that a lot. I think that's might be the direction they're going in, and that's so cool to me. But I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's what they're actually doing, but if they're doing that, man, that's awesome. I think that's such a cool twist if they do that, especially because it makes Subaru more important too. Like it makes him one of like the most important characters, but it also makes you wonder how will Al factor into this, right? Because the anime has infamously cut so much stuff from him. So I wonder how Al will factor in as a character. Like that's honestly something that I really want to learn more about stuff with Al. So who knows? Maybe we'll see stuff about it. But knowing White Fox, they'll just cut more stuff with him. Like I think they just don't like Al as a character. But what do I know? But I think that's going to do it for me. Now that we're officially like in the library, one of those most infamous scenes from the opening is finally going to be adapted. I think so. I think now it's just going to get crazier now that we're officially in the library. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. So I think that's going to do it for me. Let me know what you guys think about this episode down in the comments below. Did you love this episode as much as me? And do you also think that the person that was in charge of Pleiades Watchtower could also be from Earth? Let me know what you guys think. Like, comment, subscribe. And as always, I'm going to talk to you guys next time.